Hello there, my name's Sarah Parkinson, nice to meet you, and I'm an author and illustrator, and that means that I have published this book called The Shoe Foxes, and I have written what's inside and I've drawn the pictures. Now, I'm not going to read this book for you today. I'm going to read another book by somebody who I absolutely love, who's also an author and illustrator, called Judith Kerr. And it's called Mog and the Baby. Mog's the cat. One day, Mog was playing with Nicky. Debbie was going to school, Mr. Thomas was going to work, but Nicky had a cold. Mog and Nicky played catch the string, then they played bad dogs, woof woof. Then they played tickle Mog's tummy, and then they played ball. Suddenly, they heard a noise. It was a crying noise. It was a very loud crying noise. Mrs. Thomas said, "Look who's here. Mrs. Clutterbrook has brought us her baby. We're going to look after it while she goes shopping." It's not a very happy baby at all. The baby looked at Mog and stopped crying. It said, "Puss," instead. "It's trying to say puss," said Mrs. Thomas. "Will my baby be all right with your cat?" said Mrs. Clutterbuck. "Oh, yes," said Mrs. Thomas. "Mog loves babies." Don't think that she does. But Mog and Nicky had to stop playing ball because the baby did not know how to play. Oh dear. "I've got a very good idea," said Mrs. Thomas. "Let's take the baby for a ride in the pram." The baby liked riding in the pram. It said, "Puss." "I've got a baby in a pram too," said Nicky. Mog said nothing, but she was not happy. Oh dear, very unhappy little Mog. When they came back, it was lunchtime, but the baby did not want to eat its lunch. It said puss instead. Oh dear. It said puss and cried. It cried so much that Mog did not want to eat her lunch either, leaving her little fish. She went away and sat in her basket. She sat in her basket and tried to think of other things while Mrs. Thomas and Nicky cleared the dishes. The baby found a dish to clear too. It's got Mog's fish. "Look at what it's done," said Nicky. "Oh dear," said Mrs. Thomas. "Perhaps the baby would like a rest." Oh dear. But the baby did not want a rest. It said puss, puss, puss. It said puss and cried. "It wants Mog," said Mrs. Thomas. "Will Mog be all right with the baby?" said Nicky. "Oh yes," said Mrs. Thomas. "Mog loves babies." Don't think Mog likes babies at all. Mog sat in her basket and the baby stopped crying. It was nice and quiet when the baby stopped crying. It was so quiet that Mog fell asleep. She had a dream. It was a lovely dream. It was a dream about babies, some baby kittens. Suddenly, she woke up. Oh dear, baby's got a tail. Mog thought, "This baby is everywhere," she thought. "I'm getting out." Mog ran across the road, but the baby was coming after her. And a bad dog was waiting on the other side. And there was a car coming. "There's my baby!" shouted Mrs. Clutterbuck. "There's Mog!" shouted Debbie. There's only one way to go, thought Mog, and she jumped. She jumped away from the dog, she jumped away from the car, and bumped into the baby. The baby flew through the air and came down on the pavement. It said, "Puss." Mr. Thomas stopped the car just in time. "My baby, oh my baby," said Mrs. Clutterbuck. "It's a silly baby," said Nicky. "It shouldn't have run into the road." Mog saved it, said Debbie. She's a very brave cat, said Nicky. She is the bravest cat in the world. She is a baby-saving cat, and she should have a reward. They all went to get Mog a reward. It was a very big reward. It was a reward from Mrs. Clutterbuck. Mog saved my baby from being run over, said Mrs. Clutterbuck. I told you, said Mrs. Thomas. Mog loves babies. That's a lovely book, isn't it? I love the Mog series. Now, I've got a series of books as well called The Tales of Willow Park, and I've got a new book coming out called Dragonfly Pie that you'll have to have a look out for, which is about dragonflies and geese, and there's also the foxes in there as well, so you'll have to check it out. In the meantime, have a nice day and hope to see you soon. Bye.